Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel up for our third annual Scary Sequel Month, we're talking Toxic Avenger IV, Citizen Toxie, one of the most unique movies that we'll ever do. And me and Jamie were talking about something that was really funny afterwards that, man, could you imagine listening to this and playing a drinking game, and every time we say Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD, you got a drink? So if you're drinking while you're listening, try it. See if you can make it. Make sure, of course, drink responsibly. Don't drive. If you don't drink, that's cool too. That's fine. And you know what's really cool? This week's interview. I love horror, and growing up, I love all different types of horror, indie horror, B horror, big budget horror, and interviewing actress Debbie Rochon, who is a scream queen. It was such an honor just picking her brain, how she got into the business. You know, she had a rough childhood growing up in Vancouver, Canada, you know, in the foster system, and she persevered. She ended up like in the biggest schools for theater and acting in New York City, you know, working at all the big venues, and then hearing about her transition and how she got into film is such a great story. And how she discovered Toxic Avenger and Lloyd Kaufman and his films is an even cooler story, which you're going to hear as well. And just so much more. I love talking to Debbie, and I'm just lucky that I get an opportunity to talk to people like this and hear their stories. And you'll hear in this interview, it is just so much fun. Like, I've had so much fun with so many different guests, but we had some really funny back and forth. And at this time when we did the interview, she was doing some late night shoots for a film she was doing. She was probably so tired, but she was so kind to take the hour out of her day to chat with me. So without further ado, here is Scream Queen actress Debbie Rochon. So how long was that shoot if you're working until 9 o'clock in the morning? That's a big change.
Yeah, that's really hardcore overnight. So, yeah. I mean, sometimes it just happens though, because you got to get stuff at night, and it has to be night. And, you know, it's actually quite normal when you do that for any extended period of time. It gets to be, on one hand, you get very used to it. On another hand, it's sort of accumulatively tiring, so to speak. You're with it when you're there, but then I'd say the recovery, because you never really sleep that well. So it's like anything really, so that by the time that you have to start again, that's kind of where you're the most tired until you get your third wind, and then you come back around. Yeah, it really messes with the body system, but it's par for the course, I'll tell you. It's really par for the course when you do stuff that takes place at night.
And you're doing something that you love, so I'm sure it makes it that much easier.
Oh, sure it does. Of course. Always.
Well, that's awesome. So what I like to do with these is find out like how people got to where they are. So where's your story begin? Where'd you grow up?
Well, I mean, I was born and grew up in Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
And, I was, for a long time, I was, in the foster care system. I was homeless and stuff like that. And I kind of fell into some extra work when I was basically a preteen or teen, super young. And I did like 3 months on a movie, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I decided that, that was like something to aim for, as opposed to, being aimless and having, really nothing. And I knew a lot of people like that, but that just seemed to really catch my attention, which was a wonderful thing. I started taking classes there, and then not long after that, by the time I was about 18, I moved to New York so I could study with the big teachers.
Wow.
And do some theater and really, learn what I really wanted to dedicate my life to. So that's why I went to New York.
Sweet. So what made you want to be an extra? Was it just you saw the ad, or were you like just you were in love with movies?
Someone told me about it. Yeah, I love movies, but someone told me about it and said, "Hey, you should go do this." And I was like, "Okay, why not? I'm not doing anything else but being homeless. So yeah, that sounds good. What the hell?" So yeah, I absolutely did that. It was very, very random. extremely random. And it was before the big boom of movie making was really happening there. Like, Dennis Hopper made, I think it was one of the first films that he directed anyway, Out of the Blue it was called. And that was prior to the movie I was in. But there was like 2 or 3 movies in a row. They all led to a similar theme. There was definitely punk rock involved somewhere in the storyline. Yeah, it was just after I left, like a few years after I left, once what was happening there? Something like the World Expo or something like that. That happened there, and then it became such a boom town for movies and TV and all this kind of stuff. So then but that was all after I'd left. I'd already moved to New York to study. So, and I'm super glad that I did, because, it kind of became like a city that's really, really beautiful, but yeah, not really my style. Like, New York is far more my style. I like the underground. I like, art. I like culture. I like, that sort of like older stuff as far as, galleries and that sort of thing. So that was more up my alley, more what I wanted to do. So yeah, that's why I went there.
That's cool. So do you remember your first time coming to New York? Did you like fly in, or how'd you get here?
Yeah, I flew in. I definitely flew in. It was a long way from Vancouver.
Yeah.
So definitely. Yeah, I remember the first time. Yeah, it was amazing because I had all these people in my acting class, because, I didn't really like have anything to do with my family. So I didn't have family members saying it to me, but I had people in acting class saying things like, oh my God, because you got to remember, this is it barely turned 1984 at this point. So they were saying, oh my God, you have to take taxis everywhere. And when you get out of the taxi, run into the building. And like, first of all, I'm thinking, yeah, right, I'm going to take taxis everywhere. That sounds expensive. It's like, well, you're going with close to nothing in the first place. And second of all, yeah, okay, run into the building. Well, it's good in theory, but if you've never been there, that's just not the way it's going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy advice but that's paranoid advice. These are the type of people who would never go, who would never like uproot their life and just, take something on that was completely different. And that's what separates people. No one's better, but I'm just saying that's what separates people from being one way or the other. So I was always the type to, what's tying me here? Nothing. What do I want to do? That's what I'll do. So that's the only way to be.
Yeah, like going to a new place. I'm born and raised in New Jersey. Me and my wife moved to Oregon for 4 years, but just getting out and like traveling the country, and that really opens your mind.
Yeah.
And it makes you
totally
basically like, fly or fail,
No, it's so true. And you know what? You will succeed at something. Are you there?
We're back in Jersey.
Okay, you're still there? Oh, good.
I'm still here.
You're back in Jersey. Okay, very good. Okay, so you're back in Jersey.
Yeah.
And but you know what? Things always work out really how they're supposed to. I mean, you spent 4 years there, and you're back in Jersey, and Jersey is an interesting place too. I mean, I think it's pretty cool.
No, I like it. Now, New York City, nothing's like New York. Like Portland was a cool city, but nothing like, nothing's like New York City.
Right. Exactly. And that's why even, at any point during my years, I never had any interest in moving to LA. And I even did a lot of movies in LA. Like I would fly out and do them and go back. I mean, not megaton, but let's call it 7 or 8 movies for sure. And, in specifically LA, I mean, more if you include the entire West Coast, but yeah. And I thought it was like very cool, very pretty, some nice people there, but just wasn't the, and that's technically the route that you should take if you're interested in the business aspect of it. Yeah. But if you're interested in just the art aspect of it, then you might not want to go, because that's not really what the hardcore pulse is about. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of insanely talented people there, like, just watching David Fincher, Mindhunter. I mean, there's
Yeah.
amazing talent out there, but, it depends how we want to live your life. And there's no the right answer. There's no wrong answer. There's only your answer. So I was always super cool with being a New York person and not, and just like focusing on that. That was great. So I think it's great you live in New Jersey.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Being in New York never hurt you. You still are in, you have like 250 some odd credits. So,
Yeah, no, it didn't. And even if it did, I mean, like the whole thing is like there's a whole scene in New York, and
yeah.
certainly there was then, maybe more so than even now. I'm not entirely sure, but as far as cult stuff goes, and I always liked what the indie East Coast was doing versus what the indie, and I say indie because I mean specifically the subject matter West Coast was doing during that time frame. We're talking the 80s and 90s now.
Yeah.
So I just think I like the New York aesthetic about, you had Henenlotter, you had Kaufman, you had like, all of these very, sliming, oozing exploitation films that were more about like, maybe some political statements, some environmental statements, but there was statements as within also the exploitation as well. But, and then in the West Coast, I found it was more, maybe exploitation. They had a lot, maybe better straight up comedies, but it was just like all a matter of taste really. So,
Yeah.
but I like the far strangeness of New York. So I was happy.
Well, that's good. So were you taking some acting classes, and then what was like your first time? Did you do any like theaters or any plays?
Tons,
Yeah.
megatons. Yeah, yeah. I belong to like a lot of theater companies. Some were on Theater Row. Trying to remember some of the names. Well, certainly the one I was with, one of the ones I was with for the longest period of time was the Tribeca Lab. We did like a lot of almost exclusively new stuff, or they would revamp old stuff like, The Misanthrope, for example. They would like, redo that, sort of modernize it a bit, but it was mostly all original stuff. Love Creek, that was one of the theater companies on Theater Road that I did a lot of plays with. On 42nd Street, you had all those Samuel Beckett Theater, all those, the Theater Row theaters. So yeah, we did a lot of that in Actors Alliance. Actually, that was a company that I got them their very first grant, which was, I'd never, written 4 grants before in my life, but
Yeah.
it was exciting to get one. Didn't matter that it was, less than $1,000. It's sort of like once a theater company gets a grant, it's sort of, that's broken the ice, and then they could start getting more and more. So yeah, it was good. Like a lot of really good experiences and tons of classes. And, when I couldn't afford classes, I would, be like the person who helps the teacher and, sets the entire studio up. Like they would have over at HB Studios, they would have like the person who did like all of the sort of work for the class, and then they get to take the class for free. So I did some of that when I couldn't afford it. But it was all like really valuable, all kinds of stuff, starting out like little walk-on stuff to, bigger and bigger, and lots of one-act plays. Yeah, had a really good time. Had a great time.
That's awesome. What was the last time? Have you done that at all in a while?
No, I haven't done it in forever because it's so rare unless you're in a far bigger production and you have like a theater agent, and probably you'd have to belong to Equity, I imagine. Anything less than Broadway or maybe off Broadway, it's all free. So you really have
Oh,
to have the time, and there's nothing wrong with free, but you have to have the time to do that. And it's, at least 6 weeks rehearsal, maybe 8, and then it's at least 2 weeks performance. If it does well, it could be 4, 6. And that's all like just for the love of the craft. And that's a wonderful thing, but you have to really also have to be able to afford to do that.
Of course, yeah.
So, and you also can't take any other work when you're doing that. You can't, somebody calls up and offers, a couple days or maybe it's a couple of weeks on a film, you wouldn't be able to take it because you've committed to the project that, in the theater. So it sort of cancels itself out to a certain extent. If you were really pursuing it, then you could do it. If you were, dedicated to, the stages where I want to be, that would be like a whole nother, dedication and, approach.
Yeah. So from that, how did you transition? Like the first credits on here, like you had the one when you were still in Vancouver, and then it has, and again, these are never 100% right on IMDb, but they have you as, yeah. But so you can tell me if it's wrong, but it says Vampire's Kiss. You're an extra in that?
Yep. Yeah, I did an extra work in that. That was in New York. And if you have the IMDb, you could probably correct me more. But yeah, that was
I would think
one.
so, yeah, because there's 250 you have to remember. So
yeah, exactly. And the order is the hardest thing to remember because you could shoot a movie 1 year, but it may not be released for 2 years, 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really, really hard to keep all that in mind. But yeah, Vampire's Kiss, I did about 3 days extra work. I was like a person down from Nick Cage. It was like a bar scene where he goes over and meets Jennifer Beals and stuff. And yeah, I didn't think anything of it at the time other than it was really cool. And then I see the movie a number of years later, and it turns out like I love the movie. I can't see myself in it. I don't really care. I love the movie. Like the movie's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this is really, really so much fun.
Yeah, he's insane.
Yeah, I love it. And people think, oh, yeah, right, because you probably had a good memory of, being one of the first extra stuff you did in New York. Yeah, maybe that's true that I had fun, but that's not why I love it. I love that movie because of him. Yeah. Like his performance is crazy. It's great.
So from there, were you still doing, I'm sure you're still doing like theater work?
Oh yeah. I was doing the theater work until I would say 94.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was doing it till 94. Then once I did Abducted 2, I just really started getting too much work, even though it was here and there, but it was too much work to commit to any particular theater production because, like I said, Tribeca Lab for example, I should say, still a little tired. Don't mind me.
It's okay.
The commitment was so long, like a couple weeks into the last play I was supposed to do with them, I dropped out and they totally understood and they were great about it, but that's kind of what happened. So I was like, oh, I don't want that to happen again. That felt awful. So I said, I'm not going to do that again. Yeah. So it's not like I'm not going to do theater again, but I didn't want to be in that position. So it's honestly just not come up since then. So I had like quite a few years, doing that and having fun and learning.
Oh, yeah.
And then, just going off, really you get more and more attracted to what you like and you just gravitate towards that.
Was there any movie that you did before Abducted too? Because that was like when things kind of like took off, like you said. Was there any of those roles that you had in other movies that you're like, you know what, I could kind of, I get used to doing this? Oh,
I definitely like them all. I think most of them up until that point, I'm trying to remember, but between like the massive big budget movies like Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains, for example, or Vampire's Kiss, like these are multi-million-dollar movies.
Yeah.
So like that's one experience. Then Abducted 2, yeah, okay, that's the first sort of like co-leading role film I did in 94. But that was at least a $1 million movie. Everything else I had done between that and the other films were very extremely low budget for that time, because remember, everything's still being shot on actual film.
Yeah.
So when I say that the budgets were like 100,000, 150,000, that's, you know, extremely low for real film. Like the couple movies I did, I think are amazing, like Band, which was never released, and I'm praying it still will be.
Oh man, really?
It was completed to the final credits scroll, the entire, all the music cues. I mean, it was completed. It was just literally never released yet. I say yet, and I'm just going to leave it there. But that's a super cool, fun movie, and it's a total time capsule of 1988 when it was shot. So fingers crossed.
So there's a story going on right now. I don't know if you ever heard of it. So after Jaws came out, they tried to capitalize on it, like with different animals. So there's a movie called Grizzly, and that did pretty well. So then they made a Grizzly 2. They filmed it in 1982-ish. And in the opening scene in the movie, it never came out. They're actually trying to, I guess, finally get it out now. But in the movie, it's Charlie Sheen's one of the main characters. But in the opening scene, just like, you know, horror movies, like the opening scene, somebody gets it. And in that, it's George Clooney and Laura Dern, like camping, and the radar comes out. So I don't know how, you probably know better than I, but like this movie, if they wanted to put Band out, I'm sure they can just do it, right? They wouldn't have to get people's okay that were in it.
Well, I mean, yeah, the only thing in that case of Grizzly 2 is that you have people who have enough money that, not that they wouldn't allow it to come out, but that they could actually buy it.
Oh, that's true.
And then it won't come out. But in the case of Band, there's probably, you know, for the most part, nobody would be bothered one way or another if it ever came out. It's just a fun movie. But in their case, where they're, you know, Academy Awards now, they've got all this stuff, and it's Grizzly 2. And I mean, you know, Clooney had to live through the Revenge of the
Attack of
Killer
the Killer
Tomatoes.
Yeah, Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Return of the Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes movie. And, you know, he definitely survived that with no problem. As a matter of fact, people probably loved him for it with his mullet there. But, the difference is these people, any one of them, you know, they could buy that movie just to, you know, just because they don't be bothered to deal with it, and they could just put it in their basement. You know what I mean? It's possible. I'm just saying it's possible. It wouldn't be the nicest thing to do to the filmmakers who may want it out. I don't know, but it's, you know, they have a lot of money. They don't have any right to like stop it from coming out because they've signed all their contracts. So that's a done deal. It's a completely done deal. It's just, does the person selling it, is he or she holding out for a lot of money, or are there other reasons like internal legal battles, not having to do with the actors, but between producers that have kept it from being released? Like, these are all things we don't know, right? That keep movies from being, you know, out there.
No, I just think it'd be really cool if they embraced it and they had like a red carpet premiere, and George Clooney and Laura Dern and Charlie Sheen are just like so happy to see this movie.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That'd be a cool story.
I swear to God, that's my favorite thing, is when you see any kind of celebrities, whether it's music, you know, indie music, indie film, big budget film, whatever the case may be, but there's something that comes out that is really campy, and they totally embrace it, and they get it. They're down with it. They, you know, don't try to like poo-poo it. They're just like, you know, completely all in. And I think that is so charming, and that is so refreshing. I personally like the person even more.
Yeah.
If I already like them, say I already like their work, I like them even more for embracing something that even may be silly, right?
Yeah.
But that's just me, you know. I think that's very, very cool if someone could do that and not be all fucking hoity-toity about this shit.
I always said if I ever like met like somebody like, that was in Oscar winning movies, I would always ask them for an autograph on like a photo of saying like George Clooney's case, like Return of the Killer Tomatoes. Like,
Right.
I would always do that.
Yes, that's right. I know that. Well, that would be awesome too, and awesome if they would do it. I don't know the man, never met the man, but he comes across as like, if he was going to give an autograph, he would totally be fine with that, because he doesn't seem like, I don't know, he gives the impression of being a very cool dude.
Yeah, no, he seems that way. But yeah, no, that's cool. So that's
no clue, but just seems like it. But you know who seems super cool, getting back to it again, Nicolas Cage is super cool.
Oh, yeah.
Like, amazingly cool. And the irony, coming back all these years around again, is I did a film, this is like 2008 or 9 at this point, but based on the same story that he just did a movie about, based on, I should say, H.P. Lovecraft, The Color Out of Space.
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen his movie yet. I did one in Italy based on the same story called Color from the Dark. Same story. So now I'm absolutely excited and dying to see the Nicolas Cage vehicle, The Color Out of Space. But I thought that was really funny, right? It's pretty funny. Like,
that's like full circle.
It's full circle, and could be just in my head, but that's okay. Because it's all perception anyway, right? Are we having fun? That's the thing. Keep asking yourself, are we having fun? Not, are things tough sometimes? They're going to be tough. But, overall, are we having fun and seeing the humor in things? So
that's like a motivational poster, like in a guidance counselor's office.
I know. Hey, maybe. You never know.
So when you
could be the next big thing. What's that?
I was going to say, let's get back to Abducted 2. So you get that role. Like you said, you're doing all these other movies. What was that like when you obviously auditioned, I'm sure, and then they were like, you got the part of Sharon Baker. Were you like, excuse me?
Well, I was really, really pushing for it because there was a couple of things going on. Number one, I really felt like I wanted to do a film with a bigger budget than what I had been doing. And not only that, I thought it'd be super cool because it's like all like physical, outdoor, like there's no CGI back then. Like there's no, like everything had to be shot with a real helicopter. There was no obviously drone stuff happening, which they make such beautiful shots.
Oh,
but everything would had to be up in a real helicopter and all this kind of stuff. So I thought that was super cool. And also it would be going back to Vancouver to shoot a movie where I'd left as just a homeless kid. So I thought like on all these levels, it was really cool.
What was it like going back? That was your first time back?
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
First time back. Yeah. It was, well, number one, it was really great. But also I was in an area that, I wasn't in the city or anything. I was literally up in the mountains. So it wasn't like, of course it was going back, really it was. But at the same time, I wasn't in the same area, but it was just symbolic for me.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was a good feeling because of everything I'd been through. And then to be able to come back and do something that, was in your, dreams and goals, that was a nice feeling for sure.
Yeah.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
So with your movies, you've done so many. One that I definitely want to try to find and check out, and it has a really cool movie poster. I've always loved movie posters. I miss like Blockbuster and like Hollywood Video. Like it was so cool going there on a Friday night, and like there were so many bad movies that weren't even watchable that I would rent because I would be like, "Oh my god, this looks so cool," and then it was terrible. But
I know. It was like all about the artwork.
It would dupe you all the time. Yeah.
Every time.
One that's really cool is Broadcast Bombshells.
Yes.
That is and you're somebody from Jersey.
Yes, that's right. I am. That's right. Because it matters so much in the plot. Yes. But yeah, that's absolutely, the TV station is in New Jersey. Call it a TV station. It's pretty loose lingo there. But no, that's straight up exploitation for Cinemax movie. So yeah, and it even had like Amy Lynn Baxter, who was like a big Penthouse. It wasn't Playboy. It was Penthouse pet for a number of years, and she did a lot of these, like would star in a lot of these Cinemax movies and stuff like that. So there was a New York-based company that did. That's basically all they specialized in was making those type of movies for Cinemax. And matter of fact, when they made Marilyn Chambers' first straight, like there was nudity in the movie, not on my part, but there was nudity in the movie, but it was a straight movie for Cinemax, her first, called Party Inc. I had a part in that, and it was funny because the reason why that was interesting was because I had actually met John, and I'm going to say his last name wrong, Turno or something, and he had played one of the actors that played Toxie in part 2 and 3.
Oh, wow.
And so when we were taking the subway home, because it was being shot, that particular Party Inc. was being shot in Queens in the Silver Cup Studios there. So it was late at night when we had finished one of the days of shooting, and we were on the subway, and he said, "You got to check out Trauma." And I said, "Who?" He said, "Trauma. You got to check out Trauma." And he says, I was a toxic Avenger. So, you got to watch that movie. So I think it was like the first day off from shooting that movie. I went literally downstairs, and there was a mom and pop video store, and I rented Toxic Avenger, and I was like, oh my God, this is madness.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, this is crazy. I gotta meet these people. What am I doing?
Yeah.
So I literally, within a couple weeks after that, I think I sent something in to Lloyd, and maybe a couple weeks after that, I went in and met with him, all of them at that time, and then auditioned. They were doing like bumpers for TV. They weren't doing any movies yet. It would be a couple years before they actually made a movie, their next movie. And so what they were shooting was like bumpers for Germany and the Netherlands and even the States and all these cable channels that were coming up. When they would start, they couldn't afford to buy the big blockbuster movies. So they would, of course, get Trauma, and Trauma would help them get established. So they would shoot these. There was no commercials on the cable channels then. So they would just shoot these bumpers in between the movies with little comedy sketches that we would do. So it was like shooting tons of these for Trauma. I wasn't in the movies. He hadn't made any since I'd met him at that point, but I was shooting those things. I was doing like the new poster art for the movies they would acquire, live events and appearances like that. So that's how I started out with Trauma.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these right now. Just some of these photos, like Tromeo and Juliet, and one of the writers is James Gunn. Wow.
Yeah, and he co-directed it too. He ran all the rehearsals. He wrote it. He got script notes from Lloyd, but he, basically wrote it himself. I mean, Lloyd always interjects his flair and his taste and everything into everything that he does.
Yeah.
So he certainly, had a big hand in it, but the story itself is James, and James co-directed it. He rehearsed all of us for it and had a big part in the casting as well. So yeah, and he did a lot of like Trauma's Edge TV stuff. Maybe it was called Tromaville Cafe at that time. There was all these different trauma shows that were being made for mostly the UK, but all over the world. So when he was still there, because he was working in the office at Trauma, after the movie Romeo and Juliet, while it was in post, he was doing like a lot of the Tromaville Cafe. We'd do skits and stuff like that for the series Tromaville Cafe and stuff like that. So yeah, did quite a bit of stuff with him during that period of time before he moved out to LA. And I guess the first big thing, I know he did the specials, but I guess the first thing that really, was a nice payday probably was writing the Scooby-Doo movies for him.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So that guy mentions, hey, this is what I do. You should check it out. And then look what happens. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. And he was he was such a cool guy too. And I think he recently passed away, like within the past year. And I don't even know why, but I heard that, and it was very shocking.
Oh, wow.
He was not an old guy. He was like middle-aged, sure, but he wasn't like an old guy, and he was always super, super healthy. But yeah, there you go. There's no guaranteed amount of time on this planet we walk around on. But yeah, he was super cool. He was like, hey, I did this, check it out. And he's like, you should get in touch with them. And yeah, if he hadn't have encouraged me and said something to me on the subway that night, maybe I would have found them, maybe I wouldn't have.
Yeah, no, that's
true. And everything would have been very different.
So another cool movie that was on your IMDb was Santa Claus. So you're playing like a B-movie horror star that's getting stalked.
Yeah. Very, very funny. And ironically, it's like blown way out of proportion, but it's like it's based on like a lot of John Russo's, I don't want to say experiences like it's literal, but like he kind of saw things because they had the Scream Queens Illustrated magazine, they had, the trading cards, and all this stuff. And then they also made a movie, which was smart on their behalf because, why not? Like you're getting all this stuff. It's, the mid 90s and it's sort of exploding at that point. So they were putting that stuff out. And so he made the movie Santa Claus based on the same subject matter that a lot of the merch that his company was selling at that time. And so he made that, and it was made so insanely deadly serious by everybody involved. And then for it to end up to be so much fun, funny, campy, it can only end up that way because everybody, when they were making it, were so incredibly dead serious. Like I've always said, and I think you know what I mean, where, if you're in a comedy, it's a comedy. Yeah. You can't set out to make a movie campy. It only ever becomes truly campy in the pure sense when it's done seriously, but it just ends up to be campy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that movie is. And it had a nice bump this year because these guys reviewed it on this massive YouTube channel that has like millions of viewers. And
sweet.
Macaulay Culkin he's like a semi-regular with them. And I don't have all this in front of me, which I guess I should, but I apologize that I don't know the name of the show. But it's a great show because they like featured, the whole thing is them sitting and watching the movie, the best of the worst, it was called. So Santa Claus is on there. And so it exposed all these people to the movie, which was pretty awesome of them. They got it, which is why they had it on their show. And so it's perfect because whenever I see people reviewing the movie and they're trying to review it seriously, immediately I go, okay, they don't get it. Like I can't even take it. I can't read it. I can't take it seriously because you miss the point. Okay. If you're not going in thinking this is a barrel of fun, you know what I mean? And then you're having a lot of laughs and having a great time, then you totally missed it. then you miss the whole thing, miss the boat. It's like watching, The Room and trying to be very, very serious
Exactly.
about.
Yes.
That's the perfect analogy.
Yeah. No, that is true. So one thing is, well, like what I reached out to was Toxic Avenger. So Citizen Toxie, 2000. I know that guy wasn't in that one, but right?
No.
Yeah, it was a different guy.
No, he wasn't in it. Yeah, it was a different guy. Yeah. It was Dave Matty, I believe his name was. Yeah.
So what was that like? Because that movie, I saw it years ago. It was one of those movies that, like, when you're stoned, I don't do that anymore. But
yeah,
it's like mind bending, and the people that are in it too. It was pretty wild. Like Ron Jeremy's in it, and Corey Feldman.
Listen, Corey Feldman trying to disguise himself so no one would know it's Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
And he insisted on being credited as Kinky Finkelstein because the movie was non-union and he's a union actor. So I believe that was why. It sounds like I'm outing him, but it's a very old story now. So trust me, the time is come and gone. There's no like outing this person, here and now. But it was funny because I believe it's in the credits. Like he's in the credits as Kinky Finkelstein.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah. So he that's why he wanted to wear the mustache and all the sort of do all the weirdness because he wanted it to be virtually unrecognizable.
That's awesome.
Which you gotta imagine is pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
Like it was a lot of work to get him to come out and do this little cameo in the movie, and then he's basically hiding who he is. So it's kind of funny. Like it's kind of funny, but I don't think there's not too many people who don't understand that that's him. So it is funny though. It was awesome though. We shot that in Poughkeepsie.
Oh,
and
cool.
We shot it in 1999. I think it came out in 2001 or something like that. And so we're up in Poughkeepsie and shot that in a very rough area. And yeah, typical normal trauma shoot. Like everybody, was sleeping on the floor or wherever they could, and basements with no windows and all the craziness that goes on to this day. To this day, it was basically it was the exact same thing on Return to the Class of Newcomb High, redo or sequels, however we want to look at it.
Yeah. Where
all the crew and cast were sleeping in a closed down mortuary in the basement. But I mean, it's pretty rough. It's rough conditions, and I mean, so then you only get people working on these movies that really, really, really just want to be there.
Yeah, that probably makes it a little bit better because you have people that are dedicated rather than somebody that's just there for the check because, like you said, you're sleeping on the floor. So,
yeah, exactly. So, and it could go both ways because sometimes you get people that are there because, they were the ones who said yes at the job and they're willing to work, but they really don't know what to do. They don't know the job. And so that can end up costing you, a couple days of work if something's not prepared, and it's not their fault because they don't know. But so it's a very interesting dynamic because you have people that are passionate about being there, and then you have all different levels of experience from, less than none to quite a bit. And yeah, so but it's really fascinating. But Lloyd, at least of all, he knows, okay, well, my cameraman has to be completely pro. The audio needs to be completely pro. But a lot of these other departments, they can be people, who would never get that placement first time out that high up on a filmmaking job. So he's amazing for that, because so many people, if they've made a couple of movies with him, they could just fly through any filmmaking experience on the biggest set possible, because they've been through it. They've been through it. They've come out the other end. They could survive anything. So it's pretty amazing, film school for everybody.
What's really cool? There's a video on YouTube. It's like a behind the scenes of you like talking about your character in Citizen Toxie. And it's like, it's about 2.5 minutes, but it's a really, really cool video of just you breaking down like all these things about your character. And it might not even be something that was even in the script or anything, but you had this, but that's what you learned from, all the acting school and all the work that you've done prior to that. You have to create a backstory.
That's right. It's true. And, it's like, call me crazy, but, none of that stuff hurts, like, to know all that stuff. I mean, it just gives you something, because if you're improvising, for example, the more you know about who you are, where you are, and what you're doing, the easier it is to improvise, if you have to. And because otherwise you're just basically, I don't know, I need a line, that's that, and some people are like that, but I feel like if you're really in a situation, you should be able to improvise. I've always felt that way. Yeah, and that's, to me, that's honestly the most fun I've ever had is in movies where I've improvised. Always, 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 hands down. I mean, with exceptions, like when I work with Yvonne Zucon, like Color from the Dark, I already mentioned. He did Wrath of the Crows. Okay, his writing, or Exhumed, Richard Griffin. Like, once in a while, you get these guys that their writing is so tight that you really wouldn't want to improvise, because it's so particular to the story. Every word, every pause, it's like a play. But, like, on the other hand, some of the best stuff that I've done is because the director's cool enough to have let me improvise. So it's
That's
like this
awesome.
entire trust thing, like working on American Nightmare, working on even Axe to Grind, working on Serial Caller with Dan Brownlee, a very good friend of mine in the UK. Like, all of these experiences, and there's others too, where, the scene is there and they just kind of say, okay, this is the blueprint, now just go.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to write a scene where someone's just going nuts, they're losing it, and then they just start, killing people or whatever they do. So instead of just trying to plot it out, they can always just say, okay, she starts here, ends there, go. And they know me well enough that I could do it. And that is my biggest joy, is to do those kinds of scenes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Now let's talk about, because when I said, hey, send me some movies that I should watch, just like when we were going to talk a few months ago. So I watched Axe to Grind. Man, that is such a cool movie.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And there's going to be a part 2 coming up.
Cool.
So, I mean, we'll see what, how much farther down the rabbit hole she can go. So that'll be fun.
No, that was a cool character.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. It was really, really fun. And, let's put her in even worse situations, see what she does. So that's a joy. And the nice thing is, like, there's right now, there's like a number of films that have either potential sequels or planned sequels coming out, which is like really cool. Like American Nightmare. That one is a little bit more dependent on funding, so it needs to be a certain amount of money raised in order to really pull it off. So that one's a little bit more of a question mark, but in the works. Billy's Cult, which may not be a movie that you've seen, but it's a super cool, really insane detective that I play. And they're doing like a raising of money with a sizzle reel for, even though they've already made a full movie, now they sort of want to do a series that would be something that would be on a channel like Netflix, like a streaming service. So, I mean, it's interesting because there's a lot of stuff that's, coming up again. with like part twos or spin-offs or, and even Chainsaw Sally, like the Chainsaw Sally show is going to have season 3 after, well over a decade hiatus from part 2 or season 2, I should say. And also aiming for, more of a streaming service, because things have changed so much. I mean, that's where everything's at now, is just, it's all streaming. So even the best actors and directors, they don't have to be Hollywood, but the best ones out there, be it indie or otherwise, are working in like limited series, The Haunting of Hill House, all these amazing shows. They're so good. And just like all the real talent is going to like, it's like making a 10-hour long movie, these limited series shows, you know what I mean? Like, it's so cool. Yeah, love it all. So, there's a lot of stuff coming up. And as far as like just revisiting characters, there's a lot of stuff, which is cool. I just did another movie with Melhouse. First time I worked with him was on a movie called Psychic Experiment, which was awesome. Lionsgate put it out. And then we did a couple of other projects together. And then we just finished a movie called Mystery Spot, which stars Lisa Wilcox.
Oh, awesome. I interviewed her. She was awesome.
Yeah, she's so cool, like really, really cool. And Graham Skipper. So yeah, that's really cool. Like, Mel's so good at writing like multi-leveled stories that you can't guess where they're going. And I just love that kind of stuff. So being able to work with him again. And so like, there's been like a lot of revisiting of either working with people or revisiting of redoing characters. And I just finished, now it's about a year and a half ago, so it's not just, but I finished working on Lloyd's last movie, Shakespeare Shitstorm, which is hilarious.
Oh, cool.
It's very, very funny. It takes on the social justice warriors and the super conservative, far too politically correct groups, so as well as many other things, because Lloyd is always multi-leveled, and he has so many things he says in his movies, as well as he has a great time, just a really silly, fun time. But yeah, this is literally a shitstorm, literally a boat that the whales are having their shit plumes as they jump over this big sort of like, fancy boat that these big pharma executives are partying on. So basically they've done it so much that the boat is sinking from the amount of shit. And so I'm not even kidding. This is really real, really the story. But I won't spoil everything, but I will tell you that there's so much and the ship's going down fast and everybody's like drenched in it that they have to dock where? Your hometown, New Jersey.
Oh.
Tromaville, New Jersey.
It's always
so
New Jersey.
There you go. I know. It's Tromaville, New Jersey. That's it. So anyway, and then that's where the story basically really starts and takes off. So that's the beginning, the setup, and then it just goes absolutely crazy from there. So it's great fun, really great fun.
That's awesome. So what does it feel like, especially some of those movies like American Nightmare came out in 2002, that 17, 18 years later, they're like, you know what? We want to do this again. That's got to be such an awesome feeling.
It is an awesome feeling. I guess the struggle is, I think about 10 years after it coming out, it was really shot in 2000. So I would say in like 2009 or 10, we co-wrote a script, John Keyes, the director, and I, and it can really take this long for things to get financed. And it depends like what road that you're going to go down to get something financed. Like, I know Axe to Grind will likely be a fundraiser. And I know that American Nightmare Part 2, also known as Lady Misery, that's not going to be, crowdfunded, if you will. That's more like looking for, proper investors, that have larger amounts of money and like that. Because at the end of the day, the crowdfunding is good if you're able to squeeze the movie out on a super low budget, depending on what you make. Or maybe you can match it with one investor or something.
Yeah.
But when it's a really solid, can't be done for less than 150,000, I'm just throwing that out there. You really can't expect a fundraiser unless you're maybe Spike Lee or somebody to pull in that kind of money.
Yeah.
So each one is like, not sort of new, if you will. I mean, Axe to Grind certainly is newer because hasn't been out that long, a few years, but not long. So that's sort of the right amount of time that you would think it would happen. But a couple of them, it hasn't been from a lack of trying. It's been, just that they just happen to take that long to come together.
Yeah. No, you got obviously a lot going on. And I think I mentioned this in one of the emails, but I interviewed Joe Castro. And I know he's working on getting Terror Tunes 4 out, and you're in that.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's so much fun.
Yeah.
He's so talented. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is just insanely talented. Just what comes out of his mind and what he's able to create is just, the guy should have his own series. I mean, really, he should just have his own series and just the money to fund it, because boy, he's just got so much talent, and he's such a kind-hearted person. He's a good guy. I was always so happy that I got to meet him, and then to work with him, and then afterwards, he's the type of guy, always just keep in touch, see how you're doing. Like, not like some people. Some people just get in touch when they, need something from you, and that's understandable. We're all super busy trying to balance like a life with, maybe some of us have health issues and a career, and it's a lot of stuff to balance. You can't keep in touch with everybody, and I certainly haven't been, the perfect person in that department, but he's the type of guy that's like good at that. And so that's nice. That's really nice. I like that. It's a show of character.
Oh yeah. It is obviously a lot of the effects. Well, it depends on what it's showing in his films, but there's a lot of the like CGI, like those kind, but it's practical effects that he shares photos on Facebook, and he sent me a bunch of them like after I interviewed him. They are like insanely real looking, some of the gore.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It really is. Like, he's really, some people just have it, they just have it. They can learn it, they can study it and get better and better and better. And without discipline, it doesn't matter how talented you are. I've always said it and thought it. You can be the most talented person in the room, but if you don't have discipline and practice, your talent doesn't really mean anything. But he's the type of guy that has both. He just works day and night, plus he's like insanely talented. So it's a beautiful combination. It's like some of my favorite musicians are like that. Like, for example, top of the hat would be Prince. Insanely talented. But guess what? Worked his ass off every single day. And when he got really famous, it didn't stop. He worked even harder.
Yeah.
So that these two things, they have to go hand in hand. You could have lucky enough to be born with the talent, but if you don't like practice, discipline, all that kind of stuff, it doesn't evolve. It doesn't really have, it doesn't mean anything. So, but yeah, that's what Joe has. And I've been really lucky enough to meet a handful of people who have that, because it is rare. It really is, because most people they could be really nice, they could be really horrible, but they could just really be in it for not the interesting reasons, but the less interesting reasons to me. For example, like, to be famous, to, get this or that out of it. That is sort of like a side effect of the art form, but it's not the, why you should be there necessarily. So when you sort of scrape away all those types, there's some really class people working in indie horror, and even horror, I have to say. Like James Wan is a stellar human being, and he's also really talented, and he's successful. Someone like Larry Fessenden, he's more of an indie guy from New York, but I love what he does. And he's, to me, insanely talented and hardworking and a good person. So it's possible to be all those things. And I don't know how I got to this point in the conversation, but that's what I'm thinking.
No, we were talking about Joe, but no,
Joe Castro, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I would say a lot of those people that don't keep at it and are doing it for the right reasons, those might be people you see in like 3 or 4 movies, or get 3 or 4 movies made and then fade out because maybe they, give up, let the foot off the accelerator. But I'm telling you, every person that I've interviewed so far, obviously, they're going to be nice like yourself and take the time. It's not like people are doing this and they're going to be angry, like talking, but everybody I've talked to, like they are so dedicated to their craft. It didn't come easy, and they just kept at it. They had a reason why they wanted to do it. They fell in love with something, and they still have this love today. Like, it's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is insane, because the other thing is too, it's like there's so many ups and downs. There really, really is. Like there's, the upswing, downswing, upswing, and on every level, not just on like the underground level that I live on, like for the big, massive people who have, they make lots of money and they have like the far more upper echelon of a career in the general public's eyes. Like to me, I could be perfectly happy, but just speaking about it from a general public's viewpoint, even there's nobody that just plateaus on top. They go up and down because that's sort of a natural course of things, if you know what I'm saying. Like, It's not like they fall completely out of favor of people, but they sort of have up and down, because people love certain actors, and they also love, if not a comeback, then whatever the equivalent is, a resurgence. It could be, doesn't have to be like a proper comeback, but it could be like, the surge is up again, or it has to wax and wane. It's almost like you do have to have a certain amount of, in order to be missed, you have to go away a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
No, that makes sense.
If we don't see a Nicolas Cage movie for a while and then one comes out, then we're jacked. Because it's the type of character we want to see too. It's not like one of the family movies. It's like one of the ones we want to see. And so now we're like super excited. And, we want to see Joaquin Phoenix do the Joker because we know he's just going to go ape shit.
Yeah.
And, it's like that, and then, they go away silently and they work on their stuff and get other things prepared and do things, and they're not in your face like 24/7.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think we can get Nick Cage to not. If you ever look at his IMDb, that guy has so much. But one thing that might excite you, if you're a fan of the National Treasure movies, they're going to do a third one. So that should be cool.
I haven't seen them. I could be a fan, but I haven't seen them.
Oh, he's great. And his dad's John Voight. So that's an interesting dynamic. But yeah, they're pretty good. They're like those treasure. I love those movies.
Oh, I have to check it out because honestly, I've not seen them. So I might very well love them.
Yeah, he goes full on Cage a few times. Like like all of his freakouts and pretty much all the movies. He has a couple scenes like that, but they're cool. The first one, the bad guy. The first one, the bad guy is Sean Bean, which is cool.
Yeah,
and the second
very
one,
cool. Very cool.
The second one, it's him versus Ed Harris, which is even cooler.
That's even cooler. He's so good, Ed Harris, isn't he?
Right now, he took over for Jeff Daniels on Broadway. I think his run's done pretty soon, but in Atticus Finch, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, wow. What a role. Oh, my God. What a role for these guys. Oh, I have to ask, well, before I forget, did you see Nicolas Cage in Mom and Dad?
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was incredible. And you know what? My friend from the internet, well, he goes by he changes handle all the time, but I've known him for many, many years. And, just one of the common ones is Reagan. And so he said to me, I said something about Mandy, how much I was like, love Mandy. It's so good, so good. He's like, okay, but if you want to see a really good movie, because I guess he liked it better, personal taste, he said, see Mom and Dad. And I was like, Mom and Dad? Boy, that sounds like a family movie. And so, but I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So sure enough, that night I went and saw Mom and Dad, Netflix. I was like, oh my God, how did I miss this?
Yeah.
How did I not see this immediately when it came out? This is amazing. Amazing. I loved it.
Him and Selma Blair, the way it like just changes so fast, the way the movie is, it's pretty awesome.
And she's wonderful in it. And I always forget to say that, but they're both. But I mean, let's face it, like you're plugged in waiting for the Cage breakdown. But in the best way possible. But she is fantastic too.
Oh yeah.
Really.
Well, man, Debbie, this has been awesome. One question I like asking people before they go, and I know like growing up, obviously, you had the hardships before you persevered and got to New York City and started acting. Was there anything else you wanted to do before you went on that extra gig? I know you're super young, but.
Well, I have to say, because it was all about literally surviving, and I mean literally. Where are you going to sleep tonight? How are you going to eat? So the only thing I can go back to is like prior to like when I was literally under 10 years old. So I have to go back that far, as crazy as that may sound. So when I was a little girl, because I idolized my dad so much, and he was a mechanic, I thought it was the ultimate job to ever have would be to pump gas.
What?
Not kidding. Not
awesome.
kidding. I thought as a little girl, I thought, this is before everything went to hell. But before that, when he was like, your dad, you look up before you really know what's going on, everything like falls to shit.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, he's a mechanic. Boy, wouldn't he be proud of me if I was a really good gas pumper? So that's the only thing that comes to my mind.
Oh, wow.
That I had that thought as a very young child.
That is so cool. Hey, were you allowed to pump your gas in Canada?
I don't know back then. Who knows? Now you have to everywhere yourself pretty much. I mean, it's very rare you get full service.
Yeah, New Jersey's full service and Oregon, the two places that I've lived in my life. So I never really had to do it unless I was driving through another state.
Isn't that insane that you've chose to live in full service states? That says something about you.
Or it's maybe my wife never wanted to pump gas. That's why Oregon was on the top of our list.
She just searched by state where you don't have to pump your own gas.
All right, Doug, I know where we're moving.
That's it.
Portland.
Okay. That's it. That's it. Exactly.
Are we having fun? That line, it makes me think of Party Down, but now I'm just going to think of Debbie Rochon every time I hear that line, because that's so true. A lot of things we talked about during our conversation were just so opening. We had like real dialogue, and I really enjoyed that, chatting with her. And I love hearing about how she discovered, Lloyd Kaufman and Toxic Avenger. And right away she was like, okay, I'll check it out, from a guy that played the Toxic Avenger. And she got those tapes from that video store and changed forever. She sought him out, and a match made in heaven. And the kind words she had about Joe Castro, who I love. And I reached out to Joe and let him know, and he loved hearing that. So it's so great, the connections that I've made, and the way people really do admire each other and love working with each other. And man, Debbie was a blast. So that's it. Your homework. It's on YouTube. It's free. Toxic Avenger 4. Citizen Toxie. This is something. The cameos in this movie, you might fall down. So strap yourself in while you're watching this one. And then also, you might cover your eyes sometimes because there's some crazy stuff in this movie. Like, I don't know if I've seen Toxie Avenger 1. I just don't know if they're as crazy. I don't know. I don't think so. But remember, Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD, if you're a drinker and you're drinking while you're listening, take a little sip each time. And don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast, follow us on all social media at Sequels Only, and don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.